Right then, welcome back. Today we are going to do a setup video and have a little look-see at this. The 1984 Yamaha RD500 LC. Liquid cooled, I know, the sacrilege. Oh no, how dare they put liquid cooled in there. Standard, 88 horsepower, 205 kilos in game. Tuned to the 9s, 101 horsepower, 184.5. So think late 90s, early noughties. 600-ish for tuned power and weight, but it's a two-stroke, which means it's got zero torque below about 9,000 RPM, and then you get everything all of a rush. We are going to use the classic two-strokes event, the 4 races, but we're going to do them in single race to get 20 riders, as we always do, because 12 is not enough, 20 is more fun, makes it more of a challenge. And yeah, Kanto, Okayama, a few other places, but there's the setup that we ended up with. I'll do the pros and cons at the end, but I know some people just go, I want the setup, so there you go. You have a setup, you can now click off the video and go and do what you want and play. Tricky bike to set up. Quicker than you'd think, however, yeah, difficult to pick up. What it does do very well is do jumps and bunny hops. How I managed to stay on, and I managed to get that on the replay and use that as a thumb, but yeah, it's... The two strokes pass me by, they mean nothing to me. I don't look at them with red tinted or rose tinted glasses and go, oh, they were the best, but I just completely missed them. I rode a few off-road bikes that were two strokes, but other than that, they missed me by completely, so they don't owe me anything. At the end of the race at Kanto North, which is a horrible little track, the tyres were okay. I went and mucked about with the settings, and we ended up doing 13 laps, and we ended up putting the spring hardness up to 10 on the front, the compression up to 10, and then one on the rebound, so the rebound was up to 5, and we took 2 off the gearing because the gearing was astronomical. It was ridiculous. It just would not pull. It does nothing below 9,000 revs. If you let the revs drop below 9 grand, anything KTM SIG 90s will just walk away from you. It is not especially nippy under 9,000 revs, and then you get everything sort of like between 9 and 11,000 RPM. So yeah, there's not a massive window to extract the performance from, so you've got to carry loads of corner speed, but it's got skinny tyres and it's old, so it's got a hinge in the middle and it doesn't want to go around bends. But if we tweak it enough, it does actually go okay. Tyres wise, it'll run anything depending on the track. Soft rear, 100% soft rear. It will last 5 laps on most tracks. If it'll last at Kanto North for 5 laps, it'll pretty much last anyway, because there's a massive amount of driving out of slow and medium speed corners on this circuit. Front end, we ran medium fronts at Kanto, medium and then hards for the race and time attack at Okayama, medium and then softs for the time attack at Suzuka, and then ran mediums again at Tsukuba. So it just depends on the track. If it's a heavy front end track, which Kanto is, then you'll need to run up a tyre. I mean, it's going yellow, it's not, I wouldn't say it's going in towards orange, it's just a nice lovely warm yellow colour, very much like the weather when it gets a little bit warmer in the UK and we get nice yellow colours instead of greens and blues. But there you go. So never thought about that before. There's a parallel between the tyre colours in Ride 4 and the colours the Met Office use on the weather forecast every night. Okay, I won't be able to unsee that now. But anyway, we did a lap. You can see the bike is reasonably stable. We increased the resistance and the damping in the front end of the bike, which then made it a little bit understeery. So yeah, it wasn't mega. I didn't expect much out of it on the leaderboards, and turns out it's quite quick. It is miles behind the other bikes in terms of PP and performance points. We did 2:11 fastest laps, 2:08, 9, 10, 11, 12, 3 seconds, which I didn't think was too bad. Race 2 was at Okayama Piper. Again, we did 5 laps. It doesn't massively like bumps, but I think that's to do with the skinny tyres and the fact that the curbs are, I think, the wrong way around in the game, but that's a disagreement for another time. The changes that we made carried through to Okayama. Again, it's a bit of a front-endy circuit. but it started to understeer, so I took one off the front preload. That's how we ended up with a preload setting. 7 laps, we ended up on a 52.119, which again, I wasn't expecting massive things from it. The big thing is the more supported front end combined with one off the preload, all of a sudden, look how much more stable it is in the corners. Yes, the back end's a little bit wayward, but it's a skinny tyre. We've dropped the preload, so the lean angle is up, so there's going to be a little bit of walking on the rear when you get on the gas. I mucked about with the spring hardness, the compression, and the rebound on the rear shock, and nothing made it better. Nothing really made it worse, apart from spring hardness, which made it want to wheelie a bit more. But nothing really made it worse, so I just kind of left it where it was and thought, well, I can deal with it. I'll just remember to stand the bike up before I get on the gas. So it was more of a riding style change than anything else. But again, front tyre green, yellow, rear tyre green, so we are getting heat into them. It's difficult when the weather changes. When it's cloudy and the ambient temperature drops, then it struggles with tyre heat. And we ended up 5th. Again, a fair old chunk away from the quicker bikes PP wise, but only 2 seconds away time wise. You probably could go quicker if you spent hours and hours and hours looking at gear ratios and other bits and bobs, but that's not what this is about. It's just about giving you all a base setting that you can use and then tweak it to what you want to do. So if you want to chop and change the gear and do it. Next race, Suzuka, cold front tyre. Could not get the front tyre cold, used a medium in the race, thinking that the amount of time it spends on the side of the tyre it generates some heat, and it did not. It did nothing. So for the time attacks, we went to a soft 10 laps. 10 laps around Suzuka on the GP course is a significant investment in time. But going to the soft tyre, look at the tyre temps. Tyre temp up. Downside is soft tyre moves a bit more energy forwards, which means we've got a slightly colder rear tyre. The bike doesn't really have enough go to warm the tyres up off the throttle. It will, but it's going to be such a massive and ludicrous amount of wheel spin and slide that you're just going to waste time. So on the 600s, 750s and 1000s, if you turn the traction off, if you've got a cold tyre, you can go through 2 or 3 corners, give it a little bit of attitude, get it walking out the corner a little bit sideways on the rear tyre, and it will warm up quite quickly. The RD just won't do that. It just doesn't quite have, and 100 horsepower is not insignificant. Someone, it keeps in a quote, was it some bloke called Set Right in Bike Magazine or something years ago, 100 power's enough, that's all you need on the road. And these, you know what, they're probably right. However, to warm the tyres up in the game, you need a little bit more than 100 horsepower, 101 when you're about 120, 125, and that seems to be enough to over-rotate the rear tyre. Ooh, that's a very technical term, is it? Over-rotate. Sound like David Coulthard, what a bell end. But yeah, over-rotate the rear tyre and just warm it up a little bit. Because of the amount of time you spend on the side of the tyre and the amount of time you spend driving, the traction zones at Suzuka are quite long, so there is an opportunity if you get hard on the gas. And if you've been watching, if you've been watching the throttle trace in the bottom right corner, a lot of times I'll feed the throttle in quite steadily until the bike's stood upright 10-15 degrees, then open it up. On this thing, I'm just opening the throttle. It is literally just going from 60-70% to 100% instantly. I'm not walking the throttle open like I do, gradually opening the throttle like I do on other bikes. But all in all, it surprised me with how consistent it was, how easy it was to do consistent laps, and how well it responded to changes. 204.859 on the time attack compared to a 207.4 in the race, so we took massive jumps out. And again, 7th. It is missing so much speed against all of those bikes that are above it on the leaderboard. It's unbelievable. I kept looking for other RD500s in the list and ended up getting bored because they just don't seem to have been used. So last but not least, Tsukuba at night. I'm sorry, Speedy, I do apologise. Headlights surprisingly good for a 1984 motorcycle, not very real. And the tyres were okay. I went a medium soft, I should have gone a soft. And the time attack we did a 56.524. I used a medium tyre because it's daytime, it's warmer, the ambient air temperature's warmer, so the tyre warms up a bit quicker. Rear tyre was a little bit cold if we're nitpicking. The biggest problem was accelerating out the corners. The power band is so small that if you use second gear, I mean, there it's out the power band there, it's not till 9,000 revs and you see and you hear it, it's 9 grand, it's like, what happened? It just goes on the pipe, I believe is the phrase. Like I say, 2 strokes completely passed me by. I like the noise, I like the smell, I've ridden a few, I like the way they ride, but no, I was very much a child of the 4-stroke ZXR 400, CBR 400, ZZR 1100. They were all my dream motorcycles when I was a young boy growing up, and we'd go to Matlock in Derbyshire, Matlock Bath in Derbyshire on a Sunday, and there'd just be it seemed like thousands of bikes at the time, and it was always the 4-stroke stuff that kind of appealed more than the 2 strokes. But yeah, 56.524 medium front soft rear, and that puts 21st. Again, it struggled because of the traction zones. The acceleration zones. It just was out of the revs, out of the maximum power zone. It just wasn't great. There's the settings again. There's the electronic settings. Anti-wheelie 1. I did muck about with anti-wheelie 0, but when it comes on the pipe in first and second, it can flip you over the back. Engine braking 3, no traction front. Go with whatever the track needs, it'll run all 3, but go for a soft on the rear. You are not going to cook the rear. Pros, it loves corners. It does once we'd got the front end a bit more support and we'd dialed out the understeer. You could throw it in pretty much as fast as you want and it would go around the corner. It's awesome on the brakes. For some reason it is. The tyres, I mean, you've gone from an old horrible cross-ply to a modern slick, so I guess it would be. And it's handy on the lever balls. It is to say it's got an S672 bike. Cons, the big one is it struggles to warm the tyres up. It's the hardest thing to do on the bike. If you just back off 10%, the tyres go stone cold. Narrow power band, it's a 2-stroke. I know it's to be expected, but people are going to ride it and go, well, it's not going anywhere. You've got to get it to 9,000 revs before it takes off. And because of that narrow power band, and because it's a 2-stroke, and because it's old, must be some sort of aerodynamic model in the bike. We know there is because of the drafting. They turned the drafting down after a couple of weeks, didn't they? It's quite slow on the straights. It's not the most aerodynamic design in the world. It's not un-aerodynamic, but at the same time, it doesn't have the power to go blasting itself down the straights at 170-75 miles an hour. But yeah, there you go. Probably the coolest set of exhausts ever produced on a motorcycle. Ducati, eat your heart out, because Yamaha were doing it with 4 exhausts way before you were. And something got said the other week on MotoGP where someone said, oh well, Yamahas have always been traditionally inline 4s, yet the 500 Grand Prix bike that Yamaha used at the 2-stroke area was a V4, so I was a little bit confused, and I kind of turned into Leonardo DiCaprio, whistling and pointing at the telly saying that's bullshit to Mrs. Motto, but there you go. But thanks for watching, commenting, liking, subscribing, all the usual jazz, and fingers crossed I will see you next time. Take care, stay safe, peace.